Hi folks, it's me, Paul Rosales with RE/MAX Realty Professionals in the home show that hopefully you've been watching on this network. We're here, we're going to do something a little different today. History is real important to people, especially when people start to forget history. You know, almost 100 years ago we had what was called the Great War, one of the most catastrophic events in human history. And this is Marta Curry with Waddell and Reed, and Byron is also here with her. One of the neat things that I came across is that they are hosting a traveling big rig show that is going to highlight World War I, the Great War. They're hosting it, and it's actually, what, 75 cities that you guys are sponsoring this. It's traveling around the United States. And it's kind of like, for the kids out there, it's kind of like it's in a transformer. It's in an expanding big rig.
Yes, it
so
is.
That's kind of neat. So tell us a little bit about what's going on with this exhibit that's coming up next week.
Yes, we're really honored to be honoring our vets, and the name of this tour is called Honoring Our History Tour, where we're going to have, we've partnered with the Kansas City Museum of World War I, which is the only museum in the country that is solely dedicated to World War I vets. So this is partnership will be at Exploration Place. That will be next week, May 30th, and we'll be there all day long, and people can come from the community and tour this big rig. It's just a big semi-trailer that's 57 foot long. It expands, and it will showcase a walk of honor honoring our vets. Chauncey Waddell and Cameron Reed, the founders of our company, they were both World War I vets, and their memorabilia was donated to the museum years ago. So we've gotten that back, and we've taken a lot of artifacts from the museum, and that will be part of this history tour.
That'll be real neat. It'll be a real neat thing to see. I know when I was in Europe, I saw one of the, I think you had mentioned there's a trench set up inside. We were talking about it upstairs. You have a trench set up inside the big rig. That's how big it is. When I was over at the British Museum of War, that was one of the interesting things to go through. And over there they even had the smell of the trenches, which you kind of smelled it before you even enter the hallway. It was kind of a different kind of smell when you went in there. But that was real neat. Now this hall of, kind of like a hall of heroes, the walk of, what did you call it again?
Walk of Honor.
Walk of Honor. So these people who, just think about it. This war is almost, the big thing this year was the Titanic. This war is almost, it goes back that far. It's almost 100 years ago that we were going into this catastrophic war. And a lot of people really study World War II. That's the big, great war that most of the people that I talk to know about. World War I, though, that was a big, big deal. We were only involved in it for about 18 months. We're kind of lucky. And if you study the history of that war, you kind of see where it plays into even the streets here in Wichita are named after some of those people, like Pershing over in College Hill, Black Jack Pershing. He was a leader. He was kind of like the Eisenhower of World War I. He led the American troops, and then if you're interested in World War II, you study some of the heroes of World War II, like MacArthur, Patton, Bradley. Those guys all served under Black Jack Pershing back in the First World War. And then if you're interested in Hispanic history, if you go back, Patton served under Black Jack Pershing when they went into Mexico and tried to hunt down Pancho Villa. So you've got all these different pieces of history that come in, and it kind of laid the groundwork for, it actually did lay the groundwork for the United States being the greatest nation on earth. So it's really an interesting time in history to study. I also understand that you're involved with the USO, is that right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, that's right. They're the beneficiary of this tour. Actually, a few years ago, we were able to raise $10,000 here in Wichita to go towards the USO, and $400,000 nationwide. We're hoping to actually raise a little bit more than that this year.
$500,000.
That'd be nice. That'd be real good. Me being a former veteran, I understand just how important USO can be, especially when you're away from home. A lot of people don't realize it, but this war was fought by a lot of people who, right now, people just graduated. Imagine graduating and then going right off to war.
Right.
You actually have, your founders were in World War I, and so that's kind of where your affiliation with this really is, as far as your company, Waddell and Reed, that you're part of. People back then, they really didn't even have Social Security numbers. You could go and join at 14 or 15, and you would be going off to war. Imagine a 15-year-old kid from this generation going off to one of the most horrific occurrences in human history. These were some very sizable battles. When I was touring Europe about 5 years ago, it was real weird. Like here, you go from here to Kansas City, and you see rest stops and gas stations. Over there, it was such a horrific conflict, you would actually see cemeteries from this war. In a given week, you'd have 50,000 people slaughtered in these battles. And when you compare that to something like Vietnam, not to degrade Vietnam in any way, but you know, it took us over a decade to get to 58,000 deaths in Vietnam, whereas in World War I, you're doing it in a week. It was just a horrific amount of bloodshed. It's a significant war because it laid the foundation for the destruction of empires. That's why we don't have empires anymore. You know, the Russians got involved with that deal. It bankrupted Britain and France. They couldn't take it in the Second World War. So you've got a lot of things that really went on in that conflict that that really have created the world that we all live in today. And to understand that really does help you understand why things are the way they are in this era. I thought there was something else you were going to talk about. We covered USO. We covered the artifact. Oh yeah, tell us what's going to be in that big rig. That's going to be real neat.
It's a 57-foot big rig, double wide. We'll have weapons, equipment, uniforms, and you mentioned the trench. It's going to be a life-size walk-through trench that people can go through, and just to signify what the conditions really were like during that time periods.
Yeah. Can we shoot the weapons?
I don't think so.
Check our website.
Great hair, by the way.
Oh, thank
What's
you.
the website?
honoringyourhistory.com for those that can't make it. You donate to